Hello everybody, I'd like to start by just introducing myself so that you can put a face to a name and to a voice as I go over today's mini lesson. My name is Lydia O'Leary, at least that's my first name. I commonly go by Maggie. You'll probably see it written both ways. Promise I'm not split personalities, I'm not leading some kind of double life. My parents just thought it'd be fun to make my life as complicated as humanly possible. Anyway. The subject of today's mini lesson is gerunds versus participles. I'll go over what they are, and I'll tell you now they're kind of similar, so I'll also go over how to tell them apart. Now, my cheesy little subtitle there is more than just a cheesy little subtitle. If you come back to this slide after the lesson is over, you may just see it a little differently. Gerunds and participles are both classified as verbals, or words that are derived from or relate to verbs. A gerund is a noun made by a verb by adding the suffix ing. It's not a noun in the traditional sense of being a person, place, or thing, but in a sentence it's used as a subject or object, a place ordinarily held by a noun. Let's look at some examples. Driving in snow can be tricky. Here, driving is the subject of the sentence. It of course comes from the verb drive or to drive, but you talk about it as though it were something tangible, even though it's really just a concept. She likes hiking. Here, your noun is hiking. It's the direct object. You ask, what is it she likes? She likes hiking. The same way you might say she likes dogs or she likes nature. He gave acting a chance. Again, you have a verb plus ing as a noun, as an object. You ask, what did he give? Well, he gave a chance. But to what did he give the chance? And you get acting. Here, the gerund is the indirect object. Now, a participle is a form of a verb that is used as a modifier, and thus it plays a similar role to that of an adjective or adverb. It may end in ing like a gerund, or it may have a different ending. For example, the barking dog is Sister Bernadette's. Here, your noun is dog. It's also the subject. Barking describes the dog, so it's the modifier. You use it just as you might say, the tiny dog is Sister Bernadette's. The hairy dog is Sister Bernadette's. Or, the psychedelic Sesame Street dog is Sister Bernadette's. What is wrong with some people? Another example. The broken window is not my fault. Here, broken describes the window. This is a case where a participle doesn't end in ing. It's a past participle. The other type of word classified as a verbal is the infinitive, which we already learned about when we discussed split infinitives. Remember, it is to plus the verb. Hopefully you already have that lesson down, and I don't need to now go over it again. Or should I say, I don't need to go over it again now. But let's get back to the subject at hand. Since this lesson is gerunds versus participles, I'll focus primarily on ing participles and how to tell them apart from gerunds. Just remember, a gerund acts as a noun, a participle acts as a modifier. Let's start by seeing if we can pick out any gerunds. Walking is good exercise. First, find the verbal. What ends in ing? Walking, and here it's used as the subject of the sentence, and so it is a gerund. I don't like her cooking. Again, cooking is the verbal. Here it is used as the direct object. It's what you don't like. So again, we have a gerund. The crying baby is very loud. Read it carefully. Baby is the subject. Crying modifies baby, so in this case we have a participle. If you got that one right, then you're ready for round 2. But before we move on, have a look at this graphic. See if you can find any gerunds on your own. Alright, let's move on. Round 2, let's look for some participles. A walking dog is a happy dog. We've already seen this word once as a gerund, but if you read the sentence carefully, you'll see it's a participle in this case. It is modifying the subject of the sentence, dog. The scalding hot coffee burned her tongue. Here, scalding is the modifier, but this is a little different. Here it's modifying another adjective, hot. Hot modifies coffee, the subject, and scalding modifies hot. It tells just how hot the coffee is. The important thing here is, it's still a participle. Taking a freezing cold bath is not Roscoe's idea of fun. This one's a double whammy. Taking is a verbal and it is the subject, so it's a gerund. Freezing is a modifier. Like the last example, it modifies cold, which modifies bath. Now, one thing I'd like to point out is that as a verbal, a gerund can do things that other nouns can't. For instance, it can have a direct object, as you see here. Bath is the direct object of taking. At the end of the presentation, I'll give you some links to some YouTube videos all about diagramming gerunds and participles. The first video delves into this subject in much more detail and is very useful. Okay, so round 3. Let's just have some fun with it. If you'd like to, you can pause the video and practice making up your own sentences. You can use these words or anything else you can think of. Try using it once as a gerund and once as a participle. I won't go through the whole list, but I'll give a couple of examples. From fly. Flying saucers aren't real. Here, flying is a participle modifying saucers. If flying saucers were real, their little green pilots may tell you that flying saucers require skill. Here, flying is a gerund, and saucers is its direct object. Now with burn. Burning in the oven, Mom threw flour on the sweet potatoes. Here, burning is a modifier, so it's a participle. But if you were confused by this sentence, that's because it's also a dangling modifier, and the sentence should probably be rewritten. Did you notice, though, that dangling is also a participle? It modifies the word modifier. Although in the first sentence, dangling in that case is a gerund. It's the subject of the sentence where I tell you that it's a participle. Have I sufficiently confused you yet? Let's just get back to the problem at hand. Or as Mom once said, oh, the sweet potatoes. To rewrite the sentence, you could say, Mom threw flour on the sweet potatoes which were burning in the oven. Or you could simply say, Mom threw flour on the burning sweet potatoes. To make that a gerund, I'll tell you that burning the sweet potatoes tends to delay Thanksgiving dinner. And that really did happen once. I can also tell you that neglecting to properly thaw the turkey properly can do the same. As promised, here are some links on how to diagram gerunds and participles. I'll go over it just briefly, but these videos again are a little more detailed and are a huge help. With both gerunds and participles, you'll draw a diagonal line that plateaus into a horizontal line. The verb goes on the diagonal, ing goes on the horizontal. For a participle, the line will hang down from the baseline under the word it modifies. If you look closely at the cover of our textbook, you'll see an example of this. Now, a gerund is an extra special case, and it gets placed on a pedestal, literally. The pedestal then rests on top of the baseline. Any words that are associated with the gerund, such as its direct object, branch off the gerund and therefore also go on the pedestal. So, to sum it all up, gerunds and participles are both verbals. A gerund acts as a noun, a participle acts as a modifier. A gerund will always end in ing, a participle may have other endings. So, that's it in a nutshell. Kind of a big nutshell, more like a nut house. Hopefully all my crazy babbling hasn't confused you more than it has helped you. If you'd like to test your knowledge, just follow this link. The quiz has, I think, about 16 questions that look kind of like this. You'll be given a sentence. First, you're asked if there is a gerund or a participle. The second part of the question asks you to identify which word it is. Personally, I've had enough of gerunds and participles in the last few days.
And if you would all kindly excuse me, it's time for somebody to go for a walk. Do you want to go for a walk? Okay, let's go for a walk.